Hello Internet, and welcome to the second year-end vlog of 2016, a year that is out to make everybody miserable right until the bitter end. Now what this video is me attempting to put on my philosopher hat for a minute, and basically expounding upon some revelations, musings, and random thoughts I've kind of come to realize over the course of 2016. Here are 5 things you realize about your life after leaving high school. Number 5. It's not as important as you thought it was. As you go through your adult life and begin either going to college or getting a job to pay down student loans, car payments, health insurance, taxes, credit card bills, electricity, internet service, phone service, and many other wonderful expenses you accrue as an adult, you begin to realize that some of the things that you obsessed over in high school have very little bearing on your actual life. Now, there are exceptions, like say if something you did in high school led you to being incarcerated, even if you were tried as a juvenile or if you were tried as an adult, that's something that can affect you. I'm talking about the stuff that everyone obsesses over, like tests that you were afraid to fail, or like proms or dances you either went to with the wrong person or didn't get to go to at all. Stuff like that doesn't actually matter in the grand scheme of things because, well, let's face it, people like employers, people who are loaning you money, and really most people you'll meet as an adult don't really give a crap about that. Honestly, most people only really care about you now. They don't really care about what kind of person you were back then. They don't really care about what you really did back then unless it's something impressive, like say, oh yeah, in high school I got to, say, go to a Hobie conference, or I got to volunteer at the Special Olympics, or got to go to Japan for like 3 years. Stuff like that may be impressive, but for the most part, if it's minor stuff like, oh, you pulled this epic prank on a teacher, or oh, you used to do this weird thing that made you well known in your high school, well, most people, and the universe at large, honestly do not care. And the bigger takeaway is not that I'm being a pessimist saying, oh, none of it matters. It's more, it only really affects your adult life if you let it. Which leads to my next revelation. Number 4. Some of the things you did in high school will make you cringe. Every day. We all have things we did in high school that at the time we thought was so amazing. This is going to make us look so cool. This is going to make us feel so awesome. That in hindsight we realize that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't a good idea. It could be whether you styled your hair a certain way, whether you wore your clothes a certain way, whether you wore a fashion item like sunglasses every single day, indoors and outdoors, even though it made no sense. For some people, it could be things they created or things they participated in that, in hindsight, were not really good ideas. I mean, in my case, there's been short films I worked on in some way, shape, or form that just don't hold up at all. But for me, one of the most embarrassing things I did, and I still cannot believe I did this, was trying to write my own J-pop without having ever studied Japanese and using Google Translate. Did I mention that the latter part of my high school experience was when my weeaboo phase was trying to die a violent death? Yeah, that moment was my wake-up call. I mean, I literally wrote the lyrics, translated them, and given that Google Translate translated out into Japanese writing, then fed that translation back into some weird phonetic thing before I understood Japanese grammar in any way, shape, or form, composed the music, submitted it to a freaking competition for other people to listen to, and it was when it was being played for the judges that I realized, oh god, I made this. It was so bad. It was basically just a poor man's version of Cruel Angel's Thesis, and I hadn't even seen Ava at that point, that it was awful, and it was composed to be an ending theme for a short film that I worked on that was also a half-formed idea, and it added nothing. It added nothing. Luckily, I had the sense to actually take it out of the final edit of the short film, but just, wow. That was like height of my weeaboo phase, and just, ugh. Point being, there are things you did in high school that, although they don't have any bearing on your actual life, they will haunt you. You will suddenly remember moments like that when you least want to, say, when you're at work, or say when you're trying to enjoy something like a movie, or a meal, or even just an evening with someone, and then those memories will pop up, and you will immediately cringe, and then you'll be asked to explain, oh, why are you cringing? And then you'll have to say, oh yeah, it was something stupid that I did in high school that I still regret, and still gives me nightmares to this very day. Number 3. Being an adult is hard, and there's nothing you can do to change that. Now, a lot of people may think being an adult means you get to have fun all the time, that you get to run around free. And while, yeah, it's partially true in the sense that the government is no longer holding a gun to your head to make you go to school, another thing that you also come to realize is that things cost money. For the most part, you're going to have to work a job that is nowhere near what you were studying in college or high school just to make ends meet, because, well, at the end of the day, food costs money and you have to eat. That's not to say that adult life has to be completely terrifying. Far from it. It just means that, yeah, you have this sense of freedom, but freedom is something that you have to maintain. It's not something that can be just given to you. It's something that has to be earned. The hardest thing for a lot of people to accept at first about becoming an adult is the fact that it's all about compromise. You have to be willing to sacrifice a little bit in order to gain what you actually want. And that's not to say that everything is bad and everything is awful. It's just a matter of knowing when to compromise and when not to compromise. When you're willing to give up some of your time and when you're willing to safeguard it, which is also especially important. I mean, if you look at, say, Japanese businessmen in a country where you have people literally working themselves to death, that's a bad example of compromise where you're sacrificing too much of yourself and not really getting a lot in return. I mean, yeah, you get money, but you literally have no time left in your schedule. And alternately, if you're hoarding all of your time to yourself, well, nobody's going to pay you to sit around. Nobody's going to pay you to just do random musings unless it's something you can make a living off on YouTube. But even then, if you're going to do random musings, it means you have to have a camera, you have to have a microphone, you have to put down the time to actually put them in some sort of a coherent form. Point being, it's all about compromise. Number 2, friendships fade, or at the very least, they change. This is a painful revelation for a lot of people to accept, but it's necessary to come to terms with this. Otherwise, you'll be spending a lot of time feeling really, really depressed. And that's the fact that the people you were friends with in high school aren't going to be your friends forever. Now, I'm not saying that they're all going to betray you, but more that your friendships will fade. You will grow apart. And even if you are still friends, the dynamic of your friendship will change. Your tastes in music will change. Your tastes in movies will change. Things that you believe will change. Things that you like to do for fun will change. And things that are important to you as an adult will be different from what was important to you in high school. And that's okay. That is how life works. We are shaped by the experiences we have. And sometimes as we are shaped by those experiences, we begin to realize that we're talking to certain people less and less. Speaking personally, I recently had to do a major purge on a lot of my social media sites. I had to get rid of a lot of people that I just simply didn't talk to anymore, simply because our interests no longer really intersected in any meaningful way. I mean, there were people that were in my friends list that I hadn't even spoken to in years. There are the exceptions, people who struggle to maintain those friendships. And, well, it's very much a game of give and take, where if you're willing to put in that kind of effort to maintain that friendship, well, good on you. That doesn't mean it's going to be exactly like it was in high school, but it just means, hey, yeah, it'll be one of those friendships that did stand the test of time, but even then, the dynamic of that friendship is going to change as you and your friend become adults. Which leads to another thing, is that sometimes the people you're friends with aren't really people you would be friends with if you didn't have to share a building with them for 6 to 8 hours a day. Now, granted, that can be a good thing for some people, where it's people they wouldn't have otherwise met or gotten along with if not for that, but it's also a case of, when you're given the choice to do whatever you want, to be wherever you want, sometimes those people that you were basically made to hang out with by force from the government or by your teachers or by some weird group project, you kind of start to realize, hey, I didn't actually enjoy hanging out with this person that much. And now I'm no longer tethered to them by gunpoint by the government because, well, I'm free now. And last but not least, number 1. You were a dick to someone who didn't deserve it. This is another difficult revelation that's hard to swallow because there are things we either did in high school that may have been funny or fun at the time that in hindsight you begin to realize, wow, that was a really awful thing I did to that person. I mean, it even makes you feel worse when you realize, oh, I laughed at this other person's expense, but then you realize, oh, what I did had a lot of unforeseen repercussions on their life. That's something I've been having to face more and more throughout 2016, is just realizing things that I thought were minor moments could have had really massive consequences on another person, and I was either too stupid or too prideful or just straight up didn't care about that. That's something you've also got to come to terms with, is when you've been a jerk to people who, for all intents and purposes, didn't really deserve it in the long run. I mean, I can think of countless people that I either gave the silent treatment to, made some very, very crass jokes against, or even just straight up insulted, yelled at, or just treated like jerks. that I realize now that that was awful. Now, a lot of people like to think, oh, yeah, you're being self deprecating. Oh, you shouldn't look down on yourself like that. But no, sometimes you do need to look at some of the stuff you've done, realize how awful it was, and if possible, try to make amends. And if you're not able to make amends, trying to avoid doing that thing in the future. There are some people I probably won't be able to make amends to for various reasons, and for all I know, some of the people may not even feel slighted, but those things still stick with you. Whether you want them to or not, they still crop up, whether you want them to or not. It's all the more reason why I think we all, especially given what we have seen this year, why we all need to pay attention to what is best known as Wheaton's Law. Don't be a dick. So that's it for this year-end vlog for 2016. What do you guys think? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Should I do more stuff like this in the future, or should I just go back to talking about movies because that's what you're here for? Let me know in the comments below. But for now, that's 2 videos down, 3 more to go. I'll see you all next time.